Welcome to Tuesday Talks. I'm Seema Kumar, the CEO of Cure. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into how one organization is driving transformative changes in mental health through the power of science, business, and media. That organization is One Mind, which was started by one family's lived experience and today serves as a leading mental health global organization, leading the charge through collaborative action and research of those who have been impacted by brain illnesses and injury. Our guest today is Brandon Staglin. He's the president of One Mind. And Brandon, through his own personal schizophrenia recovery today, has one mission, and that is to heal lives. His best-known advocacy work has been for the growth of science-driven prevention and early intervention services for youth facing serious psychiatric illnesses. Brandon has served on guiding councils of global, national, and regional influence, including the World Economic Forum, the National Institutes of Mental Health, the Foundation for the National Institutes of Health, the State of California, Stop Stigma Together, and Stanford University School of Medicine. Now, before we chat with Brandon, here's a video about One Mind.
All my emotions after that were unrecognizable, and I couldn't remember what it felt like to be normal.
He was very, very, very likely suffering from schizophrenia.
But I thought, he's such a wonderful boy, we can't lose him.
So we began the journey.
When I accepted that I had schizophrenia, it enabled me to move beyond fighting it in my head, in my mind, and move on to other things in life.
We found some answers that have been very helpful to very many, that have alleviated human suffering of the patients, of the family surrounding them, of people they love.
All of us here who faced the darkness and persevered to make it here today, don't we rock? We rock, yes.
Wow, that's such a phenomenal video, and it's just a testament to the work that One Mind is doing. Welcome to Cure, Brandon. How are you?
Doing great, Seema. Thanks. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for joining. And before we get into it, I want to learn about your story and talk a little bit about your own personal journey on mental illness and how you've been able to overcome it, but also able to sort of not only survive, but thrive.
Well, thanks for the question, Seema. So my journey with schizophrenia started when I was about 18 years old. And I had the dream as a kid to one day build the world's first starship. Mm-hmm. That was my science fiction fueled ambition for my life.
Yeah.
And so that drove me to work very hard all throughout high school and my first year of college on that dream. Mm-hmm. And then, so the pressure of that I put on myself to do that, as well as the stress that occurred during freshman year in college, it was a new environment for me, being on the East Coast at a school that I wasn't familiar with. And having broken up with my first serious girlfriend during that freshman year, and working to find my first competitively placed summer job led to the stress that ultimately precipitated the psychotic episode that I had that summer after freshman year.
Yeah.
And it was an incredibly terrifying experience. It was like I felt half my mind had vanished in that moment. And I couldn't access any of the emotions I was used to feeling in specifically the right half of my body. And I had the delusion that if I let any new experiences come in through the right half of my eye, my right ear, and so forth, that a new personality would emerge and take over my body, right? And so terrifying thought to have, and I was convinced it was true. I couldn't sleep any of the next 4 nights. And so fortunately, I was able to call a friend, and she helped me get to a local psychiatric hospital where I was treated for the first time, reluctantly. And my parents came home from the trip they were on in France at the time, as soon as they heard about this, and enabled me to come home from the hospital and help me find a psychiatrist that I could see and trust. And so that's how my journey with schizophrenia began. And there were some really dark times in those first few months of my experience, both for me and my family. I was contending with the hypervigilance and constant worry of the delusions I was facing, of threats of going to hell any moment. I was convinced that I would if I made any slight moral mistake, so I was constantly watching how much food I was eating, how many cracks I would step onto the sidewalk. I was interpreting these as mortal threats to my soul. And through all of that, I became exhausted and desperate and beginning to think that maybe death was a better way out than going on like this. So what saw me through those really dark moments were three things. Mm-hmm. Curiosity is the first. Mm-hmm. There was a moment that came when I was considering ending my life very seriously, but constantly thinking to myself, is there a reason to go on? Mm-hmm. And as part of my anthropology major in college, I've been studying chimpanzee behavior. And I continued to do that summer as a volunteer at the Oakland Zoo. And I'd still never seen one of the chimps at the zoo perform what Jane Goodall, the famous anthropologist, called in her books a dominance display, where the male chimp will beat his chest, and jump up and down and scream and try and inspire awe and respect in the other male chimps around him to cement his status in the community. And it's a great spectacle. And I thought to myself, well,
I want to see that.
I want to see that. Yeah, isn't it worth that experience? And by extension, all the other amazing things left to discover in this life. That awaited me. And so I wanted to discover those things and share those things with people and enable more discoveries to happen. So that's all the beginning of curiosity as a fundamental value in my life at that moment.
And then the second thing and the third thing?
The second thing was love.
Yeah.
So I felt no love for a long time after my first episode. I couldn't feel it. I was so mired in my illness that I couldn't have any sensation deeper than just the pain and anguish that I had. And so a moment came when I was really depressed, and I kind of shuffled into the kitchen of the home, my parents' home, where I was living at the time, and my dad was there eating breakfast, and he saw me shuffle in, and I was staring at the ground with my eyes shut, and he said, "Brandon, there's a lot of love coming from here." Mm-hmm. And I met his eyes, and I saw that in his gaze, he knew that I had endured a lot, and I saw that he meant what he said. Mm-hmm. And I was simultaneously embarrassed that my illness had hurt him like that, but very relieved that he still loved me.
Yeah.
And that moment saw the beginning of love as a primary value in my life. I wanted to feel that love again for him, for the rest of my family. And so that motivated me to double down on discipline, on taking my medication. And so every week when I saw my psychiatrist and the medication helped my voices quiet and the world around me get clearer, we celebrated together with high fives. So that was a great turning point.
That's great. That's great.
And then the third thing is sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. So a few years after I began to get well, I began to work for my family's winery business. We have a winery in Napa Valley called Staglin Family Vineyard. Mm-hmm. And I learned HTML, the web design coding language, from a book while I was recovering. And so I began to develop websites for the winery. Mm-hmm. So in the meantime, my family had founded One Mind, our organization, in 1995, our nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And there were many donors who would come to our main events, which is a music festival for brain health, as you saw in the video we just showed. Mm-hmm. The Music Festival for Brain Health was the first thing we ever did as an organization, and we still do it every year. This will be our 30th year this year, our anniversary year. Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. We've had some amazing artists over the years, great wineries pouring their wines, and great scientists speaking, great chefs cooking for the guests.
Yes.
So that was how we started. But I learned from one of the donors to our music festival around 2005 that her son had a very similar experience to mine. Mm-hmm. His name was Mark, and his story is public. It was in Seattle newspaper, which is where the family lived at the time, and that's how I learned about it. And he had lived with schizophrenia as well, and after a successful recovery for about a year, he too went off his medication just like I had done and had a terrible relapse like I had had. Yeah. And he was past the point of no return, as I read about in the article. Wow. And yeah, the mental health system could not help him. And this is emblematic of so many young people's experiences and their families all around our country and the world. Yeah. And I was outraged learning about that. And
you wanted to do something about it.
I wanted to do something about it, exactly.
Yeah. Gave you a sense of purpose.
Sense of purpose, exactly. Yeah. So I knew I had a platform that I could leverage, and through my family's nonprofit, I began to blog about my experiences with recovery. I began to blog about the scientists that we funded and the work they were doing, and highlighting those things to build hope for our followers and support for the science in our nonprofit. And I developed a good following for the blog after a while, a lot of comments and shares and likes on it. And I became One Mind's first communications director. And after building the first website for the music festival for brain health, and the guests there were like very complimentary about the website, and they said how well it encouraged them to go. I felt like a conquering alpha chimpanzee fresh off a dominance display. Full of pride.
Yeah, that's great. Full of pride, as you should be full of pride,
Thank you.
because, not only for the work that you have done, but also for sharing your story. Because one of the biggest things that happens is the stigma around, mental health and mental illness is so great that many people want to keep this a secret within their family, within their own personal. But sharing that story is important because God knows how many other people, were helped because you shared your story. And you inspired them to sort of, get discipline into their life, purpose into their life, curiosity, love, and the importance of all of those things. So, and one of the, really not well-known facts is that a lot of times schizophrenia impacts youth, especially in that age range, and especially when they've just left their family, gone to college,
That's
and
right.
and where they are their most vulnerable, right?
Right,
In a
exactly.
very stressful situation.
That-
Very not well-known fact, right?
Well, they're trying to develop their identities as adults, and
Yes.
that makes it extra difficult to be helped if they need help from their family.
Yep.
So many young people I speak with today about their experiences after talking with their folks about their kid, their son or daughter. They have a lot of difficulty accepting that they have a condition that needs care when it's really serious like this, and also that their parents may be able to help them, or their family may be able to help them, depending on who it is. Talking with some of these young people, I'm able to win their trust as someone who's been through it as well, and encourage them to get care. There are actually some new models of care emerging these days that One Mind has supported that are very promising for recovery for young people in these stages of illness, the earliest stages primarily.
Yeah, yeah.
And that offer a lot of hope for families when I talk with them about this.
Yeah.
And that does encourage them to seek care more often. So that's something,
That's
that's a
great.
message I like to spread.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because there is nothing wrong with seeking care. The care can be a full 360-degree care, right?
It should be.
It should be.
Yeah.
You need medication, you need counseling, you need guidance, you need support, but you also need a support system,
Yep.
people to share stories with, not feel like you're alone in this journey, right?
100%. And it should be like that for anyone experiencing mental illness. So often it is not.
Yeah.
The care model I talked about does exactly that. It's called coordinated specialty care. And it's a wraparound care model that enables the whole family to get involved, as it should be,
Yeah.
supporting the young person, as well as helps them get back into school, into work successfully, of course, with the medical aspects of it and the psychotherapeutic aspects as well.
Yeah.
So it's a wraparound model. But why don't we have that for everyone with mental illness?
Yeah.
I mean, someone has, cancer is a very serious condition,
Yes.
heart disease, very serious condition.
Yes.
We have wraparound models of care for
Service,
people
yeah.
who experience those things,
Yeah.
and they deserve that.
Yeah,
It's very important they get that care, but
Yeah.
it's the same for people with serious mental illness. So
absolutely.
it should be that parity.
And when we talk about healthcare, we have to think about not just the body, but also the mind, right? And that's what this is all about. And that's what One Mind is all about. We need to have
Yes.
that parity, right? For health, mental health parity, just like we have. If you have a broken knee, you go get treated. And so it's the same thing, right? For mental illness.
Our co-founder, Patrick Kennedy, liked to say it's important to get a checkup from the neck up.
Yeah.
Probably heard him say that.
Yeah.
He's still on our board. So we address this issue by aiming to improve the care that's available for mental health.
Yeah.
So we do it from a 3-stage process. So we start with everything that we do is based in science,
Yeah.
as it has been from the beginning. We evolve the care the advancement of the care from the scientific discovery through the development of new treatments and solutions, all the way through the dissemination of those treatments and solutions throughout the community and society.
That's great. That's really good. So in 2022, you launched the One Mind Accelerator, right? Because what you wanted to do was to help companies who are working on mental health programs get their research or their services off the ground, because they may be working on something really, really spectacular and groundbreaking, but they may not have the resources to get it off the ground. Tell me, a little bit about the kind of companies that are part of this accelerator and what are they doing?
Yeah, happy to do that. So we have some amazing companies, and this is our second cohort. We did this for the first time, as you mentioned, starting 2 years ago. And the companies have gone through some amazing changes for the mental health system. So last year we had some great companies doing things, one called Motif Neurotech that has a minimally invasive brain surface implant that goes on the skull and does like transcranial magnetic stimulation style magnetic stimulation for the brain.
Wow.
But it's always there, so it's more effective. And
So it's implanted.
it's implanted on the skull, yeah. So not as invasive as deep brain stimulation, but very helpful for it's seeming to be for people in the treatment-resistant depression phase. That's one example. This year in our cohort, I can't announce the names of the companies yet, but I can tell you what they're doing.
Yeah.
We'll release our press release in about 2 weeks. But they're doing things like using the gut microbiome to treat depression, using functional medicine. So that's what that means is understanding what nutrients and minerals are at different levels in people's systems and helping to rebalance those, to rebalance their brain function, to treat psychiatric illnesses. Other areas include services. So we have the deep science and we have the services section. Under the services section, we have companies doing things like providing peer support and counseling online for new mothers or mothers-to-be experiencing the threat of postpartum depression or actually in that stage of depression.
Yeah, that's great.
Support for young people who are suicidal in their times of crisis, and helping them through those crises to stabilize and hopefully live a life of a better wellness from there on.
That's great, and we're looking forward to seeing the press release and the names of these companies who are doing, really great work. Now, you talked about a few examples of science and the progress that's being made in science. So how much actually progress has there been made in the last 2 decades in terms of scientific innovations in mental health? Also, AI is all the buzz now. So is AI diagnostic playing a significant role in this progress towards, diagnosing, treating, caring, taking care of, patients?
Yes, 100%. This is the bright side of AI. People talk about, is AI a threat? Is it going to be a boon for society? And it depends on how we use it. So the companies that we're involved in are using AI for good. So for example, one of the companies in our cohort for 2024 is using AI to look at organic compounds that can be repurposed into medicines or drugs, developed into drugs, using AI to screen the compounds and figuring out which ones might work best to be a drug. And so they already have one in the pipeline for schizophrenia, which is really exciting.
Great. Yeah.
But going back over the past 2 decades, science has developed a long way. And every year at our music festival for brain health, we have our scientists speak. And every year I'm just blown away by the advances that they are making and the discoveries that they are bringing forth. So for example, in the early 90s, there was a lot of research being done on genetics and genomics of mental illness, candidate genes and GWAS, ultimately, the genome-wide association studies to understand what genes are involved in risk for different mental illnesses. That evolved into the 2000s, 2010s into studies of brain circuitry and how electricity could be used to manage brain health conditions, as well as big data. So like lots of large-scale studies to bring in lots of new large-scale participant cohorts to get great scale of data for better, more powerful results. One mine was involved in that as well. And then now we're moving into the 2020s, and new things are coming to the fore, like psychedelics, like the microbiome, like I mentioned, and like AI. So for example, one of the companies we had in our cohort in 2023 was Tetricus Labs. This was co-founded by one of our past Rising Star awardees, Dr. Phil Corlett. And this company, along with this, he's leading this along with his co-founder, Lindsay Dow, is using AI for triage and relapse prediction for people experiencing different mental health conditions. And this was founded based on Lindsay's experience with her mental health journey and how she had a difficulty finding the right treatment from the very beginning and how that affected her, nearly ended her life. But she did find the right treatment ultimately when she was properly diagnosed. So that inspired her to join forces with Phil Corlett, who had this technology in AI, to bring this company forth to help more people have that precision medicine approach to treatment.
Because, half the part of the whole equation is actually diagnosing it correctly.
Exactly.
And then the right treatment for the right patient at the right time is really important. And that's what the promise of precision medicine is, right? And so...
Exactly, yeah. So many people, when they start a medication, they need to take it for up to 4 to 6 weeks before they know whether it works or not. And then if it doesn't, they have to start all over again, trial and error for months at a time, like I experienced.
Yeah.
It is a desperate time for so many families who have to deal with that. So precision medicine is a very necessary advance to make happen in mental health care.
Thank you so much for joining us, Brandon. Thank you for joining us at Cure and for joining Tuesday Talks.
You're welcome. It's my honor to be here. Thank you, Seema.
And thank you all so much for joining us. And don't forget to catch Tuesday Talks every week. See you again next week.